Hello there.
The room is quiet in a way that feels louder than noise. You can still hear faint echoes of laughter, like they followed you home and got lost somewhere between your front door and your bed. Your clothes still carry the scent of the night, perfume, street air, maybe a hint of something warm and familiar. Your phone screen lights up the dark room for a moment, then fades again, leaving you alone with the soft hum of everything unsaid. Outside, the city hasn't fully gone to sleep yet. A distant motorbike passes by. Someone is still talking somewhere, their voice blending into the night like a memory you can't quite hold on to. But in here, it's just you. You lie down, staring at the ceiling, replaying fragments of the evening. The jokes that made everyone laugh. The way someone looked at you for a second longer than usual. The warmth of being surrounded by people who, for a few hours, made everything feel lighter. It was a beautiful night. So why does it feel like something is missing? There's this strange quiet that settles in after everything ends. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that makes you notice the space around you, and the space inside you. As if the moment you step away from the noise, something gently taps you on the shoulder and whispers, "Hey, you're still alone." And maybe that's the part no one really talks about. How you can be surrounded by laughter, by conversations, by people who seem to understand you, and still come home feeling like there's a gap you can't quite name. Like the night gave you something, but also took something back when it ended. Maybe it's because moments like those are a little bit like borrowed light. For a while, you stand in it, warm, glowing, surrounded by people, and everything feels full. Conversations flow easily, laughter comes without effort, and for a few hours, you don't have to think too much about yourself. You just exist in the moment, held together by shared energy. But borrowed light doesn't stay. And when it fades, you're left noticing the parts of yourself that were quietly waiting in the background. It's not that the night wasn't real. It was. The joy, the connection, the small, fleeting sense of belonging, it all happened. But sometimes, those moments don't reach the deeper places inside us. They brush the surface, like waves touching the shore, but they don't always sink in. And maybe that's where the loneliness comes from. Because deep down, what we often crave isn't just company. It's to feel seen in a way that lingers. To feel understood even after the conversation ends. To have something that stays with us when the noise fades and we are left alone with our thoughts again. There's also this quiet shift that happens when the night ends. When you're out, your attention is scattered, on people, on music, on everything happening around you. But once you're back in your room, all of that attention comes back to you. And sometimes, that's when the weight of your own thoughts becomes more noticeable. It's like walking into a room that suddenly feels bigger than before. And in that space, you start to feel the absence of something you can't quite explain. But here's the thing, feeling this way doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It doesn't mean the night was fake, or that you're incapable of connection. If anything, it might mean the opposite. It might mean you're someone who feels deeply, someone who notices the difference between temporary warmth and something more lasting. And that kind of awareness, even though it can feel heavy, is also what makes those moments meaningful in the first place. I remember one night like that a little too clearly. It was one of those evenings that felt almost cinematic. Warm lights hanging above the street, soft music spilling out from a small cafe, the kind of place where conversations overlap and no one really notices. I was sitting with a group of friends, the table cluttered with half-empty glasses and plates we kept saying we'd share but never really did. Someone was telling a story, something about a trip, I think, and everyone leaned in at the same time, laughing before the punchline even landed. I laughed too. Not forced, not fake. It felt real. Easy. Like I belonged there without having to try. At one point, I remember looking around the table. There was this quiet second where everything slowed down. The warm glow of the lights reflected in their eyes, the sound of cutlery gently tapping against plates, the low hum of the city just beyond us. And I had this thought, almost like a whisper in my head. This is nice. I wish this could stay. But of course, it didn't. The night ended the way all nights do, gradually, then all at once. People checked the time. Chairs scraped softly against the floor. "Text me when you get home," someone said. Hugs were exchanged, casual promises made. "We should do this again soon." I walked home alone. The air felt cooler than before, brushing against my skin in a way that made me suddenly aware of myself again. My footsteps echoed slightly on the pavement, steady but a little too loud in the quiet street. I pulled my jacket closer, Not because it was that cold, but because something felt exposed. When I got back to my room, I didn't turn on the lights right away. I just stood there for a moment, letting the silence settle in. And then it hit me, not all at once, but slowly, like something sinking. That feeling. Not sadness exactly. Not emptiness in a dramatic way. Just this soft, persistent awareness that despite everything, the laughter, the warmth, the connection, I was still on my own. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at nothing in particular. My phone buzzed with a message, "Had fun tonight, smiley face," and I smiled when I read it. But even then, there was this quiet part of me that whispered, "Why do I still feel like something's missing?" And I didn't have an answer for it. I think, for a long time, I saw that feeling as something I needed to fix. Like there was a missing piece somewhere, and if I just found the right people, or said the right things, or stayed a little longer in moments like that, it would finally go away. That the quiet after a beautiful night was some kind of flaw in the experience, or worse, a flaw in me. But lately, I've started to see it a little differently. What if that feeling isn't a sign that something went wrong, but proof that something mattered? Because you don't feel that kind of quiet ache after moments that are empty. You don't carry that lingering softness with you unless something in you is touched, even briefly. It's like your heart expanding for a few hours, and then gently noticing the space it created once everything settles. Maybe loneliness, in that sense, isn't always about being alone. Maybe it's about contrast, the shift from noise to silence, from being surrounded to being with yourself again. And in that shift, you become aware, not just of what's missing, but of what you're capable of feeling. There's something quietly honest about that. And maybe the goal isn't to erase that feeling entirely, but to learn how to sit with it without immediately turning it into a problem. To recognize that you can have a beautiful night, feel genuinely connected, and still return home to a version of yourself that feels a little unfinished, and that's okay. Because being human isn't about reaching some permanent state of fullness. It's more like moving between moments of warmth and moments of reflection, between togetherness and solitude. And neither one cancels out the other. If anything, they give each other meaning. So maybe that soft loneliness you feel afterward isn't something to run from. Maybe it's just your way of slowly coming back to yourself. And maybe that's enough. Maybe it's enough that you felt something real, even if it didn't stay. That for a few hours, you laughed without overthinking, spoke without holding back, and existed in a space where things felt a little lighter than usual. Not everything meaningful has to last forever to be worth something. There's a quiet kind of beauty in knowing that you can step into warmth and still find your way back to yourself afterward. So when the room feels a little too quiet and the echoes of the night slowly fade, maybe you don't have to fight it. Maybe you can let the silence be what it is, not empty, but open. Not lonely in a painful way, but spacious in a way that gives you room to breathe again. Because the truth is, you're not broken for feeling this way. You're just someone who noticed the difference between being surrounded and being truly held. And that kind of awareness, even when it aches a little, is also what makes your heart so alive. So tonight, as everything settles, maybe you can sit with that feeling a little longer, not as something to fix, but as something to understand. And maybe, just maybe, the quiet you're feeling right now isn't here to remind you of what's missing, but to gently show you everything you're still capable of feeling.
Thank you for listening, and see you in the next story.